Yeah. So.
Okay. It's now 7:01, and I'm going to call this meeting of Old Saybrook Board of Education to order. We'll start by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item on our agenda tonight is recognition of the Superintendent of the Year. But before we do that, and I just first of all want to say a big thank you last night for all the effort. Eileen Baker, Ellen, Isla, Karen, and Julie Pendleton for everything you did to make the event happen. Because without you guys, it would not happen last night. So thank you very much. So we have presents.
Oh,
Where?
Right? It's like Mardi Gras. What do we do next week? Yeah, always start with presents. Presents or cake, one or the other. Oh, thank you. So the sparkles the other day? Yeah, for that. I kept saying there's sparkles all over your. What's happening to you? I said, were you doing Christmas cards? She's like, yeah. I'm thinking, why are you doing Christmas cards at work? Doesn't matter. We're meeting my office. No, doesn't matter. Okay. Beautiful. There's my God, it's getting all over you. Yeah. Thanks, Julie. Yeah. Now you have sprinkles. Purplers. Purplers. Oh my God, it's gorgeous, isn't it? Yeah. Oh my Lord, I'm covered. Oh, thank you for the brown paper. Anticipation. Oh my God, that's beautiful. Let's see what our light. Our light, like I own it. That's look. Oh, beautiful. Thank you so much. It is. Thank you. That's beautiful. Well done. Oh, it looks. Yeah. So for anyone who doesn't know, this is our custom that when, someone leaves the board or something special happens, we put a book in each of the libraries in honor of that person. And so my books are, of course, Being a Dog, A Tale of Mindfulness. Pass them around. And then for the middle school, no, this is the middle school. For the middle school, it's Good Night Stories for Rebel Girls. Perfect.
And here, I just want to read the inscription, because this book is dedicated to Superintendent Jan Ferruccio in honor of being named the 2023 Connecticut Superintendent of the Year, and for 10 years of dedicated service to the Old Saybrook community and Old Saybrook Public Schools.
Oh, yes. And the future we need, organizing for a better democracy in the 21st century. Wrong with it, right? So these were picked out by the librarians based on what they thought I would be interested in. And I greatly, greatly appreciate that. Can you pass them around? Sure, absolutely. Yeah. Did any, so I just want to again thank everybody for everything you did to celebrate me. Those of you who came to the events at the Mystic Marriott, thank you, and everyone who came last night and all the planning and work that went into these events. I really felt I went home last night feeling very loved, very special. And it meant a lot to me, and the letters and the cards and emails, and even the reaction the board had when I told you in executive session, when it was all big top secret, was really like spontaneous and joyful, and thank you. It does mean, it means so much to have people you work with all the time telling you that you're valued, and I greatly appreciate everything that you've done.
Well, it means a lot to us.
Yeah.
Yes.
Your honor
Deserve it.
and our presence.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really, it's very special.
You know, and I hope, you know, I was listening to Carl last night, who was saying such nice things, and I was thinking, this is really good for Old Saybrook, you know? It's good. It's a good positive thing that's happening to Old Saybrook, and as I said last night, it's not like it's my award. Yes, I'm getting the award, but the award goes to everybody who makes this possible. And I could be the best superintendent in the world with a terrible board or teachers who don't care, and then a lot of good that will do. So because all those pieces are in place, we can be successful together. So thank you.
A lot of people wanted to come, but then we're sick of the flu,
Yeah.
you know, or different things, and so really nice, because I think that the celebration really addresses the 10 years, the longevity that you've been here, so that's why it was really important to reach out to as many board members as possible.
Yeah, and it was nice to see so many board members there, and I got some really nice emails from people today who said, you know, they wanted to be there, but either just so busy or not well, but their emails are lovely too, and I'm keeping them all, and that's not really like me, but this is. So thank you.
And we have a video clip from the conference. for-
Yeah, okay.
Oh.
Full disclosure about the video clip, you people online, you might not be able to hear it so well because Zoom's being prickly and won't let me share my screen, so we're gonna do our best.
Yeah, let's try not like.
And.
They made up way up.
Sorry, one second, sound was working.
They're blinking at me. Speech doesn't want to work. That's all there is to it.
It's because the meeting hours, hold on.
Okay. I've not heard what I said.
It's good too.
What did I say? There's like. Yeah, I know, I'm good.
I know.
I told the superintendent that first, too.
Well. Now it worked.
Can we post it online and watch it at our leisure?
To see it.
We definitely could.
I know, but if we can see it now, it'd be really nice. If we could.
Yeah, it's, the sound's not coming through, unfortunately. Sorry about that, everybody. I don't know why it was working earlier when I tested it, but right now it's.
I want to recreate your speech.
I will. I do have.
Yeah, we can place it on the website, correct, school website?
I see.
Very weak.
Really, the video.
Yeah, I'll link it.
Huh?
You have any?
Oh, we do.
Talking about what idea on the website with the link.
Yeah. I think outside of the context of that event, it may not have as much feeling to it, because, I mean, I got up there and I started with a joke. I said, you know, thank God you didn't stop applauding before I got to the podium, you know, that was my big worry. So audience participation went well, yeah, particularly that, and they laughed at the right moments. I told little funny inside jokes about, well, I don't know, funny to her. I told inside jokes about, you know, what it was like to go through COVID together, and it really, you know, resonated with superintendents because they all went through the same thing. Yeah, we
Okay,
can
so Trent, if you can email us, that would be great.
Yes, I'll email everybody.
email me too. I'd like to watch it.
Okay.
And Trent, then can I forward it? Like, when you
I'm
send
just
it?
gonna email you a link. I'll probably have to load it to our district YouTube channel, and then I'll just email you a link.
Okay, some people from Tim wanted it, they thought that it resonated
Sure.
in terms of an educator really saying what it was to work with students and teachers and so.
Keeping it real.
And they, yeah, so they approached me, I'm like, I don't know, we'll find out, but send your brand.
So moving on,
Yes.
we'll do correspondence next, Gary.
No. Yeah, the students.
Oh, yes, right. We want to do
Oh.
correspondence next. Thanks.
Yep. So, correspondence, we do have a few things. We have a letter from a parent who's just, gonna pass it around. Lots of questions about instruction and curriculum. We have, everybody has the Rambler, the new high school Rambler. And then, as you recall, at our self-evaluation for attorney, put together a reference guide of Robert's Rules of Orders for all of us. So everybody has a copy in here. That'd be really helpful. And that is it for tonight. Thank you.
Karen, will that letter be posted to the notebook? Because I don't think it's in there currently, the parent letter.
The notebook?
Our online,
Oh, yeah.
the parent letter's not in there. But here it is. Thank you.
Okay, reports from the Student Board of Education reps.
Okay, so I just wanna preface this by saying me and Elliot both struggle with the switch to Gmail as opposed to
Me
the
too.
Office
Me too.
system. As like a collective unit here. So we couldn't get our report up to the packet in time, but if you look in front of you, I handed out some of these scrambled paper copies. I do apologize for any grammatical mistakes. It's been a busy day for the both of us. Elliot's gonna start us off here.
So our clubs at the high school, the drama club had rehearsals around a week ago. And they're going to be performing the musical Legally Blonde. And auditions. They're starting in around a week, their rehearsals, and auditions have wrapped up around a week ago. Winter break is coming up soon. Starts, we have a half day on the 23rd, Friday, and that's the beginning of our winter break. Midterms are coming up in the middle of January, around 2 weeks after break ends. The high school is having a band day coming up in February. This is when the 8th graders come to the high school, the 8th graders in band. And they perform a concert with the upperclassmen band. Tonight, the treble choir, which is a before school choir, a 0-hour class they're performing. And all the choruses in 8th grade chorus are going to be performing on the 21st.
So we've switched up into the winter sports season for athletics at the high school. But going back to the fall season, the boys soccer team at the high school closed out their season with an outstanding victory against East Hampton in the Class S state final. And they won the championship with a score of 2-0. For the basketball teams, boys basketball has their away opener this Thursday at Hale Ray. They have scrimmaged a few difficult opponents, but have emerged victorious in most of those. Most of or both the outcomes they've emerged victorious. With girls basketball, they opened their season with a win yesterday. I couldn't find the exact score, which is why we have a hanging sentence here. But I was getting there. But they won yesterday and they play again later this week, I believe. For track and field, they have their opening meet today. Actually, it's going on right now at the Hill House High School Athletic Facility. And that looks to be. You said it was kind of like a skirmish. Or,
Yeah,
right?
it's like the track equivalent of a scrimmage. It's called a developmental meet, so, yeah.
We know there's not a lot on this report, so if anyone has any questions, we'd be happy to answer.
I have a question. Who's playing the dog in Legally Blonde? Right, the Chihuahua, isn't there a Chihuahua?
Yeah.
How are they gonna? Can you find out, can you find out for the next man?
I will.
Find out.
Play the part.
That's right. Who's looking for a future?
I'm also from you, so I know how big of a role that is.
Part, yeah. So I wasn't at the last meeting, so it may have been brought up. I went to the Orient Express play, which was really, really great. It was awesome. But can we buy audio equipment for the actors? I mean, is there any way we can get that on the agenda for the Board of Education? Because it was very, very difficult to hear. the actors in the play, that, because and it was a very heavy, dialogue heavy play. And so there was a lot that was missed in the audience, and I wonder, how does something like that happen? I would love for
I'm
us
not
to
sure
hear-
that that isn't,
think that
I mean,
has
we can
something.
check to see what that system is, but those are body mics. And I'm no expert on
The
that.
lavaliers,
Yeah,
maybe.
my understanding is that with those mics, there's often that they pick up a lot of background time, but let us check with, Jeremy, that system's not that old, and it's
Yeah.
it's very good.
Because I have to
It
tell you,
seemed
I
like they
was there
weren't
too.
wearing-
Yeah,
they
they
weren't
were
wearing
wearing.
mics.
Yeah, they were.
They're wearing,
Yes.
it's, they are lavaliers, exactly,
Uh-huh.
correct. Yeah, so they're taped to their faces, or they're all,
Mhm.
they're mic'd.
I know, and I was.
Yeah,
It's not uncommon to have sound issues, but we can look into that
Yeah.
and see what's
Good.
going on,
There was
especially
no
opening
protection.
night.
Yeah.
opening night
Quite a
events.
number of those.
Huh?
We buy so many every year.
Yeah.
They're quite expensive
Yes,
and they are intricate and delicate. I don't know if this has anything to do with it, but we did have a new sound panel installed. And there were troubles with the previous one, so I'm not sure of the timing. And that may be why there was some issues. So, I can certainly follow through with Jeremy.
and I think the other thing is that we often rely on students to do that work. And we had someone, I don't know who's doing it this year, I don't know if you do, but I know last year we had someone who was very expert at it. He actually was a board member. And that was his love and passion.
and then he
so-
went and graduated.
And then he went and graduated,
There,
right?
down there.
No, just to add to what Karina had commented on, we were at the National Honor Society presentations as well, and it was very difficult to hear.
Exactly.
Same thing, so it must be all part of that same sound system.
Right.
Oh.
That was,
If I may, so with that, a lot of the times what was happening is that the people weren't adjusting the microphone close enough to their face, and they would kind of like sway as they spoke.
observation.
So
Exactly.
like they were like just far enough away to where the microphone wasn't picking up, but when that mic was adjusted, it
Yes.
worked.
Yeah, they're very.
And I saw one of the advisors go over to the student standing against the wall and say, stand close to the mic, and then people remembered it were on top of it was better. Yeah, those mics are meant to pick up, like, they filter out background sound and messy sound, and so you do have to stand close to them for it to pick you up. That might have been user error.
I was just gonna say, it's interesting because it's on the topic of like microphones.
Yeah.
So probably important to test, because it should really reach the back row, for people that are attending, these other people that maybe can't hear very well. But I also was thinking that on that topic, use of microphones, when they did the Veterans Day presentation on the green, whether it was students who had practiced so hard and adults, nobody could hear. And I was gonna make an appointment to talk to Carl, because it's almost like, and Krista, because the kids need to practice. I almost ran up there and was like, let me fix the microphone, because everybody's saying they're going, you couldn't really hear, and we know that they have practiced, the speech, but they probably hadn't practiced the resonation of a microphone and how you have to adjust it for each person that comes. So that might be.
Yeah, just a follow comment, it might very well be user error, but I think.
Yeah.
There's a point where we should be bold and say, would you mind putting the microphone
Right.
and interrupt the students, because it takes away from the presentation, it really does.
You can't hear you. And to just continue, I've been at all the events that we were talking about, but also at the soccer games, when they're announcing, that even cuts out. So to me, it's almost like a overhaul of the sound system in general. Because there were a couple instances, he mentioned about the kids not standing close enough to the mic at the National Honor Society event. However, there were several cases where it was cutting out. And I mean, watching the play, you could not hear. So I get that there's glitches sometimes with sound, but the amount of time, energy, and effort these students put into the events, and you want to be able to have their voice heard. We're always saying we want students' voices heard. Well, we actually literally want their voices heard as well, so.
I was just gonna second that, and most noticeably when we did the dedication of the lights, there was a lot of issues with the sound that day.
Yes.
The only person you
lot
could
of
hear was Jan,
And there was a lot of parents.
and because she was a teacher and knew what to do.
Right.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah. Just the last, this little period, so maybe there's also an opportunity, I always say, there's some golden opportunities come about that students, because Jan can presents herself and articulates clearly and slowly. And often sometimes people are speaking rather quickly and they mumble. So it's important to do a lot of, that happens just in the field that I'm in, but that happens very often, that they're not really, speaking slowly and timely and so on. Good opportunity.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, John and Elliot. Audience of citizens is next. Would you like to address the board?
Yeah, so I
Before
actually have,
we do that, though, I want to just go over some ground rules.
Oh,
Apologize.
You're presenting. Oh, you both misunderstood each other. She's you're on the agenda later on.
Oh. I apologize.
That's all right. No. No worries. How would you know?
So, pass that. The next item is the meeting minutes, and I will be looking for a motion.
Second.
Any discussion or questions?
I'm sorry, who wanted the first, the second?
I did first.
Baker Burger.
Baker Burger.
Any comments or questions? Seeing there's no comments or questions, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes? Aye. Was opposed? Abstentions? So moved. Whoa. I had to do that. I had to do that.
Two nights in a row, somebody shaved time off my life.
Remember that first meeting when I was, you the devil.
Right.
Okay, we're all awake.
We all. Okay, education issues for discussion and possible action. 23-24 budget process update.
Yes, thank you. So speaking of purchases and budgets, as we anticipated and have been saying all along, our budget is not going to be as low as it has been in years past. In talking with my colleagues across the region on Friday, it sounds like many people, I shouldn't say everyone, many people are facing the same thing. We have the funding cliff that was anticipated, though we didn't put much into the grants that would be a recurring expense. We have increase in wages in response to inflation, and we have inflation. And then we have two state initiatives, one that's gonna potentially cost us money directly, which we've put a pilot in for the year, which is the science of reading implementation. And then the second one is CT SED, which is the special education, the new IEP platform, which does not cost us any money. But we are finding that teachers are very overwhelmed by the process. And so we're looking to make some purchases to make that easier on them. And with that kind of broad overview, I'm going to turn it over to Julie to talk a little bit more about where we are.
So we currently have put together most of the pieces to the budget and to the budget book that you'll receive. We give it to you as a Christmas present every year. There are some inherent increases that I think we're all feeling. One area is obviously utilities. Those are going to be not huge increases, but you'll see them go up. And then materials, the supply items, one of them is, what Jan mentioned, there's a fairly sizable amount for materials for this potential reading program or pilot that we have to include. And then one that's new this year that you're going to see is a placeholder for food service, rising food costs, and we did not increase the costs of meals, and so it's just out of sight. I think next year we're gonna see where we're gonna need funding from the operating budget to sustain that program. So there's some new things as well as some initiatives that we don't have a whole lot of control over. And so those are all going to be contributing factors to a much larger increase than what you've normally seen in the past.
Julie, there's a reference to capital projects that have been reduced and redistributed throughout years. Can you give us a few examples of that?
So, in a perfect world, I love these projects. So, for instance, we put in to do some parking lot work at a number of buildings. Instead of doing all of what we would like to do, we scaled that back because when the budget first came in, it was, it was just really high, and we're trying to mitigate some of that and plan it out over the next couple of years. We talked about, another area was, we'd like to paint the high school gym. Normally, we would do the two gyms together, but again, we're gonna do one instead of both, and we'll do the middle school gym, the following year or the year after. So those are the kinds of things that we sort of revamped and modified our capital plan, just to make it a little bit less of a strain, there's so many other competing factors this year.
Thank you.
Yeah, Julie, could you just address a little bit about, you're saying some of the increases due to the state pilot for science of reading? I know the districts now, right, have to start looking at their reading programs, right? Because the state was trying to implement a more consistent program across the state. Is that accurate?
So it is that, the legislators last year, created language. It was, one of the final bills, implemented bills of the year, went in very late, and it said that, no, yeah, it did, went in pretty late. That we had to, all school districts needed to adopt a program, that was scientifically research-based and based on the science of reading, which is all the components of a reading program, which is something that most school districts do. So it's sort of a reincarnation of the old reading wars, whole language versus phonics. So to cut to the chase on this, because this could be an entire presentation, the state created legislation, the State Department of Education then went through a process of identifying five, I think, programs that they said met all of the qualifications and that we would all need to adopt those. Obviously, adopting a reading program for multiple grades is an incredibly expensive undertaking. Apparently, I've been told recently that there's $26 million over 2 years at the state earmarked for this, but I don't know where that is or how to access it or whether it's coming our way. I don't believe it is. So we've put $100,000 in next year's budget to pilot a couple of programs that we think are the best possible ones. Our frustration lies in the fact that not in science of reading, which has, we believe in. It's that we're being told that we have to choose from 5 or 6 programs by certain publishers. And that somehow there's a belief that this will be the answer to problems that have existed for a long time. Not so much here in Old Saybrook, but in a number of places. And do we have all of our students reading on the grade level at grade 3? No. Should we? Sure. But I don't think that the program that we adopt is going to resolve that issue.
And was there like an opportunity for a waiver?
There is an opportunity for a waiver, but the waiver was pulled. I just saw a draft copy of it today, and I believe it's going to go live on Thursday. It's pretty intense, and whatever program you adopt has to fit their standards. So I think that, I worry that we're going to end up making a shift that we didn't anticipate, nor did we want or need. And that's going to mean that's going to hit next year's budget and then the following year's budget, because we're going to ask for a 1-year, not a waiver, what's the word, deferral, so that we can pilot the way we like to pilot things and do our own research on what's the best possible opportunity for our kids. But that means that there's going to be quite a bit of money in the following year's budget.
Thanks, Jim. That's really helpful. Thank you.
When do we anticipate, I'm sorry, trying to second. Thank you. When do we anticipate the Budget and Finance Committee will need to start meeting?
You just anticipated, I was gonna say, I would like to pull together a meeting early, the first week in January, hopefully, or the beginning of the second.
Thanks.
So back to this reading thing, we keep bringing up this reading concern. So do you feel there's adequate representation from seasoned educators, superintendents that are being heard?
There was a superintendent on the committee.
We probably needed a new reading program, I'm presuming.
That's, that question is tricky to answer because I mean, I think the premise, I'm concerned about the premise. The premise is that boards of education, superintendents, reading specialists and districts shouldn't be allowed to make this decision. That the decision should be made at the state level, which is sort of counterintuitive to what we know, which is that not all districts, not all students need the same thing. We would like to have the flexibility to pivot to meet our students' needs. We get a huge influx of a particular demographic of students who don't speak English. We want to be able to make changes. It's very concerning on so many levels, and it's a trend that we would like to see reversed with the state telling us exactly what to teach and how to teach it. I don't think that professionalizes education.
I just wanted to mention, being in special education, I'm hearing that this new Connecticut Sense, and probably Julie knows more, or Kathy Vibes, that it's taking people 4 hours to just complete an individual educational program for a student. That's complicated.
We
Yeah,
have,
it's a lot of
so
time.
Kathy Bai and I met with the special education teachers. Is Kathy on?
Mhm.
Yes, she is.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll turn it over to Kathy. But we have teachers right now doing timesheets, labor sheets.
Yeah.
We downloaded a couple versions, Trent did, and we modified them, and they're keeping track so that I can present to some folks, some appropriate people, this is how long it's taking our teachers to do this work. We're talking about having to get subs in to free them up to do these in January, which is not great for anybody. It's not great for kids. It's not, but remember with IEPs, there are timelines. We have to get them done in a certain amount of time or we're in violation.
Science, yeah.
Kath, anything you want to add to that?
No, we are working, and there are, I can't even tell you how many meetings on this new system because, it's a new system. We knew there would be a growing pains, but there have been so many glitches that we literally have a meeting every week, Tuesdays, 2 to 3 on workarounds. I mean, that's how bad the system is. So, we're getting there. Cindy, who's our coordinator, does office hours at every building each week to help our staff learn the new system and work through it. But it 4 hours is probably conservative and how long it takes for each IEP. Whereas in the past, we could probably do one in between half an hour and an hour. So, it is consuming all of our time this year, is learning this new system.
I was gonna say, Kathy, and there's no goal bank for teachers to look at anymore.
Well, funny you should say that. There is,
That's what we're gonna buy.
yes. So with this, new system that is free to our districts now, there is a company that's come out. It's called Goal Bank Toolkit. That you can purchase to help with several parts of this document. So we are looking at it. I do have a proposal that I'll be bringing to cabinet on piloting it, even if it's for 1 year to help staff get through this process this year. But you're right. A lot of the resources that we had with our old system do not exist. Plus, they're all new systems. So a lot of new learning going on.
Any questions on the budget process? Thank you. The next item on our agenda is the entrepreneurship course proposal.
Yes. This was something that was come to you a little bit earlier, but lots of things got in the way, but we are here now to bring a new and I think very exciting opportunity forward for our students. I'm going to turn this over to Amity Goss, Mr. Joe Anastasio, and Carly Daly, who is sitting here, and she is our business teacher new to us this year.
Yeah, great. Okay, so I'm Carly, thank you. And I come to Old Saybrook with 11 years of teaching experience in West Hartford. And I taught business classes and entrepreneurship in those 11 years. And in addition to the authentic learning experience of actually running a business, my students had an opportunity to earn college credit through the College Career Pathways program at Capital Community College. And I'm really excited to bring this opportunity to Old Saybrook students as well. Can everybody hear me okay with my mask on?
Yes.
Okay, so next slide, thank you. So our goal with this proposal is to offer 2 one-semester courses that build on each other, where students learn the foundation of business and then apply their learning through operating a business within the safety of the school environment. This proposal connects to all 3 aspects of the strategic plan because the classes are student-driven. They offer real-world application of content. They provide all students the opportunity to take entrepreneurial risks, no matter their socioeconomic status. They create a network through collaboration with community. They challenge students to define and operate a successful business. They provide a sense of belonging, and they allow students to achieve and realize their highest potential. So this proposal connects to the high school goals because these classes not only require students to apply the research and foundational knowledge to operating a business, but it also provides them with immediate feedback on their business decisions. So students identify their strengths and pursue a role within a business team that are tied to those strengths that they've identified. 21st century skills are embedded throughout these courses, and the potential for capstone and/or college career readiness credits will be explored. And then a shift from traditional school to student agency, where students get to choose their business venture and the outcome of the semester. So if you've ever heard the term famous failures, it describes people we know who failed many times before they became famous. Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Henry Ford, Colonel Sanders. Many of these famous failures struggled in school and even dropped out. The 2 courses being proposed today will help equip our potential famous failures with the skills needed to navigate the business world after high school. We were able to survey current Old Saybrook students, and over 80% of respondents are interested in this type of course. An additional question was asked on the survey that's not shown here, and it was what career students are planning to pursue. 52% of the respondents identified that they weren't sure what career they wanted to pursue, but the second largest group at 20% are planning to pursue a career in business, which is also the #1 major for a bachelor's degree in the 2019-2020 school year. And that data came from the National Center for Educational Statistics. So these 2 new courses can give these potential business majors a leg up if they choose to go to college. So we can't foresee all of the hurdles that we will face. Even with 11 years teaching experience, Old Saybrook students are unique, and we're going to have to be ready to adapt to any obstacles we face in providing this authentic opportunity. These are just a few of the challenges that we foresee that we will need to overcome. And then there are so many positives that are going to come from offering these 2 courses, but student agency, collaboration and networking, and increased school spirit are a few that we can expect. If you provide us the opportunity to move forward with these courses, our next steps are to write curriculum, rekindle our relationship with junior achievement, connect with the Old Saybrook Chamber, determine eligibility for college career readiness and or capstone credit. And then one more that isn't listed is to reach out to Three Rivers Community College with the hopes of offering dual enrollment for both, for one or both of these classes. So thank you for taking the time to hear our proposal. Do you have any questions?
Actually, before you do any questions,
I'd like to make a motion before discussion, please. I'd like to make a motion to approve the introduction to entrepreneurship and advanced entrepreneurship as presented.
Second.
second by Leon. Any questions, discussion? Steve?
You talk about the implement marketing plan, sell merchandise. Does that mean that the focus of this is gonna be on retail? Or are they gonna have an option to choose other business ventures that they may want to investigate?
Certainly. So the idea is that it is student driven. And so if the students would prefer a service-based business, then we can certainly explore that opportunity. In my experience, service-based businesses with high school students require a lot more time commitment that isn't always, people aren't always willing to give. So I've always done a retail business, but I am very much ready to give the
So-
students ownership. Go ahead, yeah.
Just to follow up, so is it one business that all the students work towards making successful?
So I've done it a couple of different ways. We work as one class and we have one business where we sell one product. We've done one class that we've sold two products. The class has split into two groups and they've each sold their own product, but then they're competing with each other. And then in the last 2 years that I was in West Hartford, we actually, as a class, started running the school store in connection with a DECA Club, which is an after-school organization, which gets a lot more complex. But really, it really does need to be student-driven. So if the students are ready, motivated, and willing to put the time and energy in, I am ready and willing to guide them through it and support them with whatever they need.
So kind of a follow-on to what Steve asked, does the store or business that they select just last for that semester? And then the next year, a whole nother venture is created?
So the way that Junior Achievement kind of creates this program is, yes, it is a company that they open it, they raise funds to open the company, they sell stocks to raise money to do this. They research their market, they purchase a product after bidding vendors, and then they go out and market the product and sell the product. We liquidate the company at the end. And then investors get their share back if we're financially successful, and then ideally a little something extra to say thank you. We always give something back to the community, and then the students have the option or the opportunity, I should say, to potentially make some money of their own through a really tiny little bit of like a wage. And then, but most of the money that students could potentially earn is through commissions if it's a retail business. But in most recent years, I've kind of just started to continue the same company with each individual semester's passion, interest, kind of following that same company's guidelines.
And I'm just curious about the structure of it. So it's 2 semester-long courses, so each one is 1 credit. Half a credit, I'm sorry. And so I imagine that the first one is a prerequisite to being able to register for the second.
Right.
Is there a reason it's just not a full course?
Well, I think we wanted to provide students an opportunity to get a taste of entrepreneurship and the business world with semester 1.
Right.
And if they are really interested in it, then they could. If they don't want to be there, we don't want to force them. It's gonna make the class and the company work harder to operate. So,
And if I could just add something to that, and that is that, you know, you could take semester 1 as a junior, you may not be able to fit semester 2 in, but you could take that as a
You
senior.
could take it later as okay, good. Yes, that makes sense. And then just a final question about how many survey respondents were you able to get?
So we had about 23% of the population responded to the survey.
Okay.
So it was
it's about
130 students out of the 450 area, yes.
Good, thank you. Great, that's good. Thanks.
Okay, seeing if there's no other questions.
Next question.
Go ahead.
No, that's okay. So is these courses available for all students to take?
So they would probably be 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. And my 9th graders do fabulous in these courses as well. But if we do have a relationship with Three Rivers Community College where students are able to earn college credit, freshmen are not allowed that opportunity for one reason or another. And so I would hate to see a freshman, I saw it all the time in West Hartford, and it just was terrible that they couldn't earn the credit just because they were freshmen.
Yeah, I think the follow-up question is when I said all students, you don't need a prerequisite to take this class, these classes.
The intro class, there is no prerequisite. If you want to take the advanced class, then the intro is the prerequisite.
So then how do you address, because for instance, when I look at semester 1, it sounds really very exciting, but it sounds very basic for students just to understand legal forms, just general functions, nothing related to a business per se, but how to just learn about business.
Right.
Right, and what happens, I mean, there's our opportunity for English language learners and different people that maybe never even have even thought about.
Mhm. So can you explain a little bit more as to what you're?
Oh, no, so I just meant that that sounds exciting and interesting,
Mhm,
but there are lots of students that might want to learn about this,
mhm.
that might have, say, limited English skills. Or might have limited, coming from maybe a special education background.
Sure.
So that's when I say, is it open to everyone to be able to take?
So absolutely, it would be open to everyone, and I think, I can only speak for myself, and as a very new teacher to Old Saybrook, I absolutely see a need to reach our English language learners and, provide more support to them. So, I do have to say that, but I would absolutely open this to any student who wants to take it for sure.
Great. Seeing there's no other questions, I'm going to call for a vote to approve the introduction to entrepreneurship and advanced entrepreneurship as presented. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Abstentions? So moved. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Presentation. Look forward to the follow-up.
The next item on our agenda is the Goodland Air Conditioning bid waiver for the switchgear. Jan and Julie.
Yeah, I'm gonna turn this right over to Julie. Again, I want to point out that we have come to you with more bid waiver requests recently than we ever had, and it has a lot to do with the current environment we find ourselves in, and so Julie will talk to you about the details.
So, thanks, Jan, and that is absolutely, the case. This is the most unusual, purchasing and project, time I've ever experienced. So, in our preliminary work in gathering, some information for the electrical components of the air conditioning job, this switch gear is like the brains of the operation, and we started to get crazy proposals that were 50 to 70 weeks lead time. And that's unheard of. We've never, ever had to wait a year, year and a half to get equipment like this. So, working with our electrician, we did gather actually 4 proposals. They range from a lead time of 20 weeks to a lead time of 70 weeks. They also vary greatly in price. And so it's really comes down to whether we want this project to be hopefully underway and up and running maybe by next fall when school starts, or we want to wait another whole year, because 3 of the proposals would put us into the following summer. There's no other way around it. The one proposal that we are putting forward is the most expensive of the 4. But it's also the shortest lead time, and how we learned about this company called Chicago Switchboards is one of the suppliers that we got a bid from said, we can't do any better on the lead time, but you can go to our supplier who we get them from. And if you pay them what they're asking to be paid, they probably will build it for you. I mean, it's just unbelievable how companies are operating. So to be perfectly transparent, we received 3 proposals from 3 companies that we have bought other things from in the past. One of them called Square D. And their lead time was 14 months, and their price was up just under $84,000. The next one was a company called Granite City. Their lead time was 55 weeks and 83,000 and change. And then the one that was most reasonable was $49,000, and they were a 70-week lead time. So you can see that there's a huge difference to get these components made in a reasonable amount of time. 20 weeks, this company wants $101,000. So you can see why I wanted to bring the proposals to you, and we wanted the board to hear all of the pieces and parts to what goes into this project, because we're paying a premium essentially if we go with Chicago switchboard for a timely manufacturing of this particular component for this project. And it is the brains of the entire system.
And if I could just give a little context here, I'm very frustrated. It feels like we're being, kind of held ransom. If you'd like to move to the front of the line, you can. There's a way to do it. You just have to pay a premium. The backdrop is that I'm still serving, and if you got a chance to look at that, that video on CTN that's in my report. I did a presentation with Julie's help through a committee that I'm serving on about indoor air quality, because we're supposed to come out of committee with a recommendation to the legislators regarding school indoor air quality. And my worry, even though we tried to explain how these are not great times to do this, and my worry is that this committee may come up with the types of standards that we fought back on last year in legislation that say that any day that goes above a particular temperature or particular level of humidity in the classroom, we will need to close down. That obviously, after all the disruptions and interruptions we've had in education in the last few years, is not something I ever want to have to do. So we've felt a sense of urgency about getting these air conditioning projects going. And because we can feel this temperature. When the original standards were created, that a number of us went to Hartford and said, we support this, but we don't think it's doable. They dropped the standards, but they put the same people on the committee who were proponents of the standards. And at the time, I asked Julie to go speak to an engineer about what this person thought we would have to do to achieve the standards. And the answer was air conditioning. So, and also to be completely transparent about that too, we know that it's hot in our classrooms in September and in June. It's hot. It's not a long period of time, but it's days in a row. And it's very uncomfortable, and our buildings get very, very humid and wet, and that's not okay for kids or staff. So there is a good reason to do it. But it's frustrating. It's so frustrating. You just feel like you're being squeezed from both sides.
Yeah, so, certainly the board has the option to say, that's not what we want and we'll delay it another year. It does have a hiccup because the funding, we're using some of the ESSER funds that we received. So, we have to spend that by 2024. So it would push us right up to the limits there. So it's just, it's been a very, I can't even, an unusual, the other thing I didn't even mention is some of them will hold their price 24 hours.
No,
24
they're
hours.
strong there.
I did, as a precaution, did run the contract that Chicago Switchboard sent us by our attorneys to make sure that we weren't, missing something or there wasn't something in there. There were a couple of suggestions made. If the board does decide to go forward tonight, we would, I would work with the company to see if they might amend their contract a bit. She was quite funny. She said, you can try, they usually don't budge. She was really just trying to make us aware that, they're saying 20 weeks. Could be 30 weeks. There's all kinds of caveats within their manufacturing that they can use. So there's no guarantees on any of this. Alan knows from working on the high school project that, we ended up buying a panel on eBay so that we could complete that project. Like the resources and what we have to do to get through some of these projects are, like I said, like nothing we've ever, worked with before. Having said all of that, I want to let the board know that we have identified the funds, because when Jen and I were looking at these projects, and we talked about this in the presentation that we did with the group she was just talking about, we knew the escalation of costs was crazy. So fortunately, the electrical budget that we compiled can handle this request. And we would have the funds to continue to complete this along with the next order that, we'll be going over tonight as well. So the funding is there, but it's really important for you to understand the dynamics and what happened with this whole switchboard, and the fact that one of the manufacturers, Siemens, it's their parts, they're using their UL approved parts. And they're the ones who told us to go to Chicago Switchboard, they'll build it for you, it's quicker than we can do it.
Julie, can I ask you a question or for clarification? Because I think that members of the board might be ready to make a motion. The motion that we have written here talks about Granite City, but don't you mean Chicago Switchboard?
At the very end, Chicago Switchboard, we're recommending Chicago Switchboard.
But the motion says Granite City.
The motion, yeah.
Oh, the motion, yes, you're right, the motion would be Chicago Switchboard,
I mean, the amount is different as well.
right?
So what is the amount and what is?
101057.
101.
Go ahead.
057, yeah, sorry, Jan, that, it didn't, because initially we didn't have Chicago Switchboard's, information, right?
So do we need to have this rewritten or how do we?
No.
Say.
I'll make the most practical.
So if I could do that, so the Old Saybrook Board of Education authorizes a bid waiver in the amount of $101,057 to the Chicago Switchboard, LLC for the reasons as presented.
May I have a second?
Second.
Leon, discussion, questions?
Questions. I just have some questions about, Karen, something that.
I'm sorry, Karen.
Okay, so they're saying 20 weeks, which is a huge difference from the, 70 weeks and so on. So anybody who has ordered appliances or new kitchen cabinets, it never comes in close to the estimate of time. So is there any kind of accommodation when it's not actually 20 weeks and we paid $101,000?
So obviously they don't get our money up front, they get a purchase order, but, I fully expect it will be longer than the 20 weeks. But 20 weeks puts us at April 1st, so, we do have a little bit of leeway with this particular situation. With the others, you go 50 weeks or more, you're in another year.
Yeah.
And that could be.
Okay,
70
so
weeks.
there's a little, we've got time, I understand,
Yeah, there's never any guarantee though, Karen, they can come out and say that, they can't get the whatever to, complete it. I mean, you just never know, or whoever predicted that companies were gonna shut down during the pandemic. So that's kind of what they're writing their bids on, the fact that, everything shuts down and we can't get, the
yeah.
components.
Yeah, under control, I hear you.
So what?
Is there,
I've got Steve and Karina.
Yeah, so this ties into both our next item as well. I mean, we're looking at spending an extra 15 grand, potentially save 26 weeks. At this point, I think it's, for myself, I feel like we have to do it because we're so far into this project and we're gonna push things off so much further. My question is, how many other items have we not ordered? What's the potential out there for more waiver being requested? And then I also know that we have another project that we would like to start in the future. Are we gonna be running into these same issues? I'm confused as to, we knew we were gonna need switchgear at the beginning of this project. Why are we just getting to that point now where we're ordering it and 26 weeks makes a difference?
This is a design build project, Steve. It's a pretty complex project because we had the power component to deal with first. So it had to be engineered based on, what we were gonna be able to bring in for power. The switchgear had to be designed specifically for, the actual utilization that we're going to be, putting, how many classrooms we're gonna be piping and so forth. So these drawings have been in 6 months in developing. This is not something that just today, or a couple weeks ago, they have been developed over time and they have had to modify them, change them, redesign them, depending, a lot of it had to do with what was available, types of materials that are available, how the piping was going to be put into the classrooms. When the coils come in, the coils were ordered last March. They won't be, they're still not in yet. And so some of this stuff has had long lead times, and this was the type of thing that you couldn't design till you got to a certain point in the project.
I would just caution us on doing it this way for the next big project, so that we're not stuck having waivers constantly.
Thank you, Karina, you are next.
Yeah, just a couple of questions. You probably considered this when you presented the contract about lawyers. I recognize that it's probably gonna go from 22 to probably 35 weeks. Is there the possibility to put some, like if it goes beyond 38 weeks, we then reduce by 5%? Is there any, you know?
We talked with we talked with the lawyer about that. She, you know, she basically said she does nothing but construction contracts. She
Yeah.
said they're probably not gonna agree to any of the changes we want, period.
Yeah, because of
I mean,
where.
it is-
you guys-
There is not a negotiations anymore.
Yeah.
It's, you know, I understand Steve's frustration. It's my frustration too. We have
Absolutely,
never,
yeah.
we have never had the, hurdles that we have had with
With, yeah.
these projects.
it.
And the middle school is a very different system, Steve. It's a chilled beam system. It's a whole different design. You know, it's also $3 million. So we're gonna be looking at, you know,
That's gonna have a different delay to it, which will be money.
yes, exactly.
But so what I heard you say is that our budget, like, even though these bid waivers are higher than, you know, there's a range of from 49 to 101, it's still within. It doesn't push us over budget significantly.
We're
Is
not
that what
over
I heard you
budget
say?
at all.
We're not over budget. We have room in the budget to be able to afford these waivers.
We fully anticipated that the cost of these components were gonna
Would
be
be higher.
crazy.
Yeah.
The $49,000 one, to be honest with you, I don't think they'll deliver.
Right, yeah.
They're holding the price for one day.
Mhm.
You know, by the time this order goes in, it'll be 79,000.
So,
Right.
so to the point though, that you made, an excellent point about, having some sort of, asking for some sort of penalty to be built into the contract. We said when the turf field incident happened that we would never go forward again without asking for that. It's worth the ask and it's worth documenting the ask. So if we are unable to get it, we still have to proceed without it. We can at least show the attempts we made
Right.
to put that in
Yeah, it's a
place.
good faith
Yeah.
effort.
Yeah.
Typically more successful with service contracts than material costs,
Yeah,
but at
right,
least you make an
yeah.
effort.
Yeah, and they're hanging their hat on, because I heard this from more than one company. They go back to, well, what happens if everything gets shut down like it did during, you know,
Yeah,
that's what
it's a
they're.
convenient excuse these days.
And that's
Yeah.
what they're saying,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
if everything's shut
Yeah.
down, you know, they
Yeah.
can't get the
Yeah.
component from,
Yeah.
you know. This happens to be stuff that we believe is all made here,
Good.
however.
Maybe an
If
Asian
they can't
component.
get,
and
if
they're
they
shut down.
can't get the metals or the
Mhm.
certain, you know, parts that are needed to fabricate it.
Yeah.
You know, it's
I
a
understand.
whole, it's, you know, I spent quite a bit of, time talking to, this contract lawyer, and she was very knowledgeable, and she said, this isn't as bad as most of the ones I see, you know, so, and I'm thinking, I wasn't really happy with how it looked, but, you know, it's obvious that this is the way people are doing business, and it's really unfortunate.
Thank you.
Your question.
Well, just a comment, Julie, you mentioned that there's potential loss of ESSER funds if this gets protracted months and months, you know, beyond what they're promising, any of these, in terms of delivery. You know, that's a concern, certainly. I don't know how much money that is, and I'm not asking you to tell us that per se, but if there's a potential to lose ESSER money, we certainly don't want
And the
to.
project has to be completed if you're
Right.
using ESSER funds by 2024, and it's $680,000.
That's significant.
This is not directly related to that, but it's an offshoot. Is there the opportunity, because like, you know, the town is just looking for ways to spend ARPA funds. Is there any opportunity for them to direct some ARPA funds towards some of our projects?
I may be wrong, but my understanding is they can't use that on any school indoor air.
I would imagine, yeah.
Yeah,
or
there's
any
some sort of
project.
siloing there that
Yeah.
they can't. I don't know that they can't use it on any school project, but
Not there.
yeah, I don't think so.
Okay. Thank you.
That's true. And to be honest, if there are funds available, I mean, we have, the middle school project is in the vicinity of $3 million.
Yeah.
Not-
I mean, it would just be great if we could, you know, because they're like, you know, looking for what.
Yeah, they really,
Right, yeah. So,
there might be other opportunities.
yeah, that's good.
For sure.
No other questions. I'm going to call for a vote to approve the motion for the Old Sierra Board of Education for the bid waiver for 101-057 to Chicago Switchboard as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Abstentions? So moved. Yeah. Next item is the next item. That's the Goodwin Air Conditioning bid waiver for wiring supply.
Turn it back over to Julie.
Okay, so this one, doesn't have the extended lead time like the last one did, but it does have, similar lead time. And this was, again, we did get 3 bids. This is the lowest of the 3. And so, outside of going to a formal process, the issue here is they won't hold their prices for long enough. You have to literally, get in the queue to get the order in. So
Are they
we did
even
get 3
bidding,
bids.
Julie? Are they even bidding on projects or are they not even bothering?
They won't even bother.
Yeah.
That's why we have to go get the bids, and that's another reason why the bid waivers exist, because I can put a huge spec out and I get no bids from anybody. They don't want the business because they know they can't keep up with the demand.
Wow.
It's crazy. It's like nothing I've ever, like I said, experienced. So that's the nature of this. And again, the budget for the supplies, we're in good shape along with the labor to do the work for the electrical components that is all, funds that we've set aside, and the motions that the town approved broke out all the different, pieces of funding and where it was coming from. This project's about 1.8 million all total.
Okay, so I am looking for a motion, please.
I'll make a motion that the Old Saybrook Board of Education authorizes a bid waiver in the amount of $118,860 for the purpose of piping and wiring the Granite City Electric Supply Company with the reasons presented.
Second. Second by Elaine. Questions? Comments, Steve?
Just follow up on the bid waivers. We have no other anticipated bid waiver, or do we have any other major purchases anticipated in relation to the HVAC system for the Goodwin?
No, we don't. The rest of this project is labor to install all of this. We have to pour a pad, which the town is going to do for us, for the children to sit on. And then it will be connecting all the utilities, which would be direct contracts with Eversource, Frontier, and Fiber. So that's what's kind of left for the other pieces of the project.
George?
Just a question in terms of why we even asked for bid waiver here, because from my read, it looks like you're following the process. You went up a bid, you got 3 bids, you went for the lowest bid, and this is what you're doing. So where's the waiver part?
It's not an advertised bid, it's not a formal process. We gave them a list of materials, all 3 companies, just like we would a normal bid. So essentially, yes, George, we did go through the same motion.
But you picked the vendors, right?
These are the only,
The only
basically
ones.
the only 3 in the running.
Another problem.
Had you gone out, it would be with the, I guess.
If we had gone out to bid, they would not have called to get a bid package. We would have had to do exactly what we did here.
That's what Jan's saying, is they're not even bidding on projects, yeah.
You're saying, right,
Yeah.
So because of the dollar amount, it
Right.
should have gone to bid.
Right.
It didn't go to bid. We instead solicited quotes.
Seeing there's no other questions, I'm going to ask for a vote to approve the motion. The Old Saybrook Board of Ed to authorize a bid waiver for 118,860 for purchase of piping and wiring with Granite City Electric Supply Company for the reasons presented. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Abstentions? So moved. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item is the Director of Curriculum hiring process update.
Thank you.
Bye, take care. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, this is just a brief update. Leanne's gonna go over it a little bit with you, but the process is halfway through. quite honestly, we're just about halfway through as of this evening. And you want to talk a little bit about what we're doing?
Sure, so we were in an wonderful situation because we had 80 applicants for the Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment. And it was such a high caliber of group, quality candidates. Round one, we had 12 applicants. The committee comprised of teachers, administrators, Board of Ed, a parent, a grandparent. And we had one student rep who unfortunately was sick at that point. But round two was held today. We had 6 candidates and the committee had the same types, same types of representatives. But we had middle school and high school students, and you would have been so impressed by them today. It was wonderful. We are scheduled for round 3 on the Friday, the 16th, and more information to come.
And hopefully there'll be a board meeting, a special board meeting on the 19th for the final round.
So will there be a board meeting on the 19th or?
As of now, there is, yes, provided, yeah, we're gonna go ahead, and publish one.
So this is
I'm just concerned about
like the candidates to the board customarily.
As many as
we
go,
can.
but
Yeah, thank you so much. And this was purposely limited information. Jan and I met and discussed what was going to,
Right.
you know, how much information we were giving out for this.
yeah, an ongoing HR process.
Thank you, Leon. Yeah, the next item is the policy phase 2, the first reading, I think, Jan.
I'm gonna pass it over to Jan. We had a policy committee meeting tonight. And it went very well. So, and normally we give an opportunity for the board, for the policy committee to discuss policy and then think about it and come back to a second reading, perhaps in 2 weeks. But because Jan had indicated there's so many policies that the Board of Education needs to be taking an active role on. You'll see it was actually presented to the policy committee this evening for the first time. And then it's on the agenda tonight as a first reading. Normally, we don't have it, we usually give time in between. So Jan, we'll be able to share with you what was in your board packet. And this is an opportunity for questions. We usually don't have that such a quick turnaround, but pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, I think that there are just a couple of policies here that are, probably would require some discussion or clarification, maybe not, maybe you are now also adept at looking at policy that this all looks pretty familiar to. There's only one policy that did not come from Shipman and Goodwin and is largely either a response to legislation or a cleanup of their own internal workings. And that is the use of service dogs and therapy dogs in schools. We've had, in the past, we've had therapy dogs without a policy. When I first got here, there were already therapy dogs being in our schools. And since then, that has ceased to take place on a regular basis, but there's a request for it again. Therapy dogs have been found to be helpful with some students, calming students down, making students feel less anxious and more comfortable. And so we compiled a policy and then shared it with the board's attorney to make sure that it met, her standards, because, we would like to invite these dogs back in again, with the approval of the building principal. Allowing one therapy dog in doesn't mean you need to allow all therapy dogs in. So if someone has a bull mastiff they want to bring in and to the kindergarten class and think that's too big a dog, we could say no. And what I like about having a policy for the first time is that now there are standards that we can point to and say, this is how we allow a service dog, a therapy dog. This policy does define what a service animal is. A service animal is protected. The person who needs a service animal is protected by ADA. We don't get to say yes or no to that. We might need to make accommodations for others if they have allergies, but we can't say yes or no to that. That is defined just so we don't confuse service dog with therapy dog. A therapy dog would not be assigned to a particular person, but would come in and work with student or student or whatever is appropriate for a period of time, perhaps a couple times a week. the parents would need to be notified in advance. Accommodations would need to be made if someone was uncomfortable around the dog or allergic to the dog. The dog would need to be certified, trained. There'd be, dare I say, an interview with the person who is the supervisor to make sure that we want this dog with us. And the dog would, of course, have to meet all the vaccinations and health standards, et cetera, et cetera. And the person with the dog would have to carry insurance. We, of course, also carry insurance. Really, this is just an attempt to meet some express needs by building level folks and still create a process for it and some protection for the district.
May I ask the question?
Mhm.
So is there currently one at the high school?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. My question is really regarding, I know in the past, in the high school, there have been, there's been a teacher or a student who has a dog that they're training as a.
Fidel Coat dog, like the St. Ives.
There should not be.
No, like, because Amber Sherber,
It does not have a dog there.
not currently, but previously.
When we found out about it, she doesn't have a dog there.
Oh, okay, all right.
Because that's not the same thing. A dog
Well, that's right, that
training
was my
is trained.
question, right, that's my question, yeah, that's not.
Right.
The same as a therapy dog,
Right.
which you bring in for the purpose of providing
Exactly.
therapy to students.
Exactly.
Got it, okay.
Exactly. And we said that, you could bring in a dog if it's a therapy dog
Yeah.
and meets all of our standards. But that therapy dog has a certain standard and have to be trained to that level.
Got it, okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, this is part of why we want to do this now.
Yeah.
We want to make it fair and obvious to everybody how one can bring their therapy dog and under what circumstances.
Okay.
It really worked very well at the middle school, even before I got here.
Yes,
And I was quite
right.
surprised when I discovered we didn't have a policy. Because every year a letter was going out to
Yeah.
parents and nobody seemed to object to it, and there was always a way to work it out, but I really think having a policy is important.
Yeah.
Okay. The next one is a new policy emergency action plan for interscholastic and intramural athletic events. There's nothing really exciting in the policy. The exciting work is going to come in the regulation that needs to be written by the athletic director with the support of other communities, but this is new. It's basically saying, I'll summarize, that we have to have a plan for a severe medical emergency for a student athlete. So you can picture, God forbid, sudden cardiac arrest of an athlete or, a life-threatening injury during a game. I think what the genesis is for this policy is that there were things happening perhaps or potentially happening and nobody really knew what resources were available. Is there an AED machine? Do we have a first aid kit? Does somebody here know CPR? How quickly do we get an ambulance here? I think there must have been in some place, and I don't really know where, a situation that led to this. And so now the regulation that will be developed will require school staff and local agencies. We'll probably include Dr. Candulis, ambulance folks, police, fire, all of our emergency staff to sit down together and annually talk about what is our plan for an occurrence such as this. And then that plan would be the regulation that will be made live. So the regulation isn't here tonight, but you don't approve regulation anyway. I'm just asking for approval of the policy so that we can write the plan. When we get the plan done, we'll share it with you. It'll be available there.
I mean, this is obviously, legislature driven, but I had a personal experience with my son who had a medical emergency during a practice. And even though one would expect coaches to have been trained in concussion, and one allegedly was, it was egregious, the response. And I think that they actually didn't understand how to respond to a real life severe emergency, where we were called to say, might have to come and pick your son up because there's something wrong with him. And so it was bad. And of course, Paul Liberty, right, suffered
Heart attack.
right during a game. So I just, think this is not only very, very important, but the training is very, very critical and to involve people and to ensure that they can respond when an emergency happens.
It just sounds like it's really long overdue.
Well,
So Jeff, two parts. on this. So we don't actually have the plan written yet. Right, so in the plan, whether it's so this is going to be our policy, our plan. That's a procedure,
Regulation.
a regulation, so it's going to be followed, so somebody will be able to read it and say, this should have happened.
No, this is what we do.
So the regulation.
I also would like to point out that this states the board shall annually review such emergency action plan. So we're just getting into the location where the board shall review the plan once it's put together.
Annually, yes, yeah,
Just want to make that on the record.
okay. Any other questions on that one?
I was just gonna say, just to answer maybe Steve's concern is that Jan just, iterated that the regulation, once it's developed, will come to the board so we can see it. It's according to our policy, we don't approve regulations, but we definitely review them and we take a look at them.
And it will also be available to the general public on the website that should have been sent out.
So we'll review them.
I'm sorry, just a related question. So this speaks specifically for interscholastic and intramural athletic.
That's right.
events. So it's my understanding there is a safety plan that should be reviewed by the Board of Ed outside of that. Is that correct? That the emergency management in town signs off on and the school is part of?
There is a safety plan that is put together, submitted to the state every year. It's everything though. It's all inclusive. We do share parts of that with everybody, parts of that are available to all of you and parts of it are not. For specific reasons.
Understood.
Yeah.
At what time? Is that like annually shared with us?
So Julie, the giant emergency management document that you submit to the state first. November
To the
first,
state.
yeah,
This day.
and then it's shared. Parts of it are shared on the website, parts of it are, every DLT gets all of it.
Administration has it in a copy in the office. We do not publish it for obvious reasons.
Right.
It's one of the recommendations to not put your information out on the website so that.
Sure. Understood.
So I don't know about a board approval component for that, do you?
No,
Julie?
there's no board approval. There's about 10 or 12 sign-offs that have to happen. The fire chief, the town officials, the emergency management, the chief of police, the every principal signs off, the superintendent, the board chair. It's a whole series of
So there is the board chair. That was my next
Yes,
question.
yeah.
Yes, okay, very good. Thank you.
Okay, so the next one is, there's a partner policy. So there's this one on policy regarding employee use of the district computer systems, electronic communication. They're just updating their policy. They got rid of words like black bear. Right? MySpace, and put in much more contemporary terms. The regulation is the same. I'll let you look those over on your own between now and the next board meeting. If you have any questions, you're certainly welcome to reach out to Eileen or me. And the notice goes along with the companion with it. Again, there's a student one. The last policy we're gonna look at tonight, we're not really gonna look at because it's the same thing. You get this next one all the time, reports of suspected abuse or neglect of children or reports of sexual assault of students by school employees. This seems to get updated every legislative session. And it was updated through Public Act 22-87 this year. Chipman and Goodwin also took this opportunity to change all of the pronouns from him or her to the child. They've been doing that in all of their policies. Cleanup of who the reports get reported to. We're practicing this now. You know, someone asked me earlier, do we have DCF complaints? And I see them. They come to my desk all the time, not all the time, but frequently. And then on page 10, it says that we are going to make sure that we share the guidelines regarding identifying and reporting child sexual abuse developed by the governor's task force with our staff, board members, parents, guardians. Every year, we will do that by posting it, once we get it from the state. We will post it and it will be available to everybody. And also down the bottom of that page, beginning July 1st, 2023, all school employees shall complete the training regarding the prevention, identification, bystander, et cetera, et cetera. That to me says, since we're already doing that DCF training, I'm thinking there must be amending the DCF training, and now we're gonna have new DCF training. We're only required to do it every 3 years. We've been doing it every year because we don't wanna miss anybody, and we hire new people, or people change jobs, and we don't wanna miss anyone. The other change is down the bottom of page 11. Annual distribution of the documents to, how was that one different? I've forgotten now. Annual distribution of the policy, the guidelines, and sorry,
I believe it's because it's electronic.
electronic, yes,
There's a paper copy.
thank you. And then there's the reference. Everything else is just minor changes to the regulation, and I expect you'll probably see that again next year.
That's a question.
Yeah.
So I read through the policy, and I like to read policies. I wouldn't say concerned, but I question how when there's a suspected case of an employee suspects maybe another employee of improper conduct. At no point in here does it say that they shall contact law enforcement, that there's nobody who is responsible for contacting police to do any kind of investigation. Matter of fact, it talks about the person who does investigation would be your office. And to me, I would feel more comfortable if that was an outside source, outside agency that specializes in doing investigations into criminal activities as opposed to your great administration and education, but I don't believe criminal investigation is a high priority of yours. So I would like to see something related to it being referred to the police for
Yeah,
investigation.
so it doesn't say that because DCF wants to be told first. They do not want the police investigating something like this first. Very often in our town, DCF and the police work very closely together. The investigation that I would conduct would be a separate investigation, and it would be a personnel investigation. So the police, DCF may end up conducting an investigation. Sometimes DCF will call the police themselves. Sometimes we dual report, but DCF gets very upset if we don't report to them first. That is one of their requirements. I am not allowed to start a personnel investigation unless I get permission from DCF to do that. So when we call to make a complaint, we say, may we start our personnel investigation or not? And they'll either say, yes, go ahead, or no, you need to wait till we clear you. I have sometimes had to wait 4 weeks before I could start an personnel investigation for that reason. But it's DCF, and it's DCF by law. As I said, in our town, we do get more police involvement, and sometimes that's us calling, and sometimes that's DCF calling, but the required call is to DCF, and that's it.
Is that referenced in a state statute?
Yes,
We
I
can
believe-
get a
yes.
copy of?
Yep, that's been, it should be in your references here at the end. I'm not sure which one, but it is in the references at the end. And every DCF training we've had, that's the first thing they say, you call us.
Because I'm a mandatory reporter for my job.
Yeah.
And there's nothing in there that precludes me from contacting police.
Well, it
when I
doesn't say you
suspect.
may not call the police, they tell us we need to call them first, and they don't want kids being questioned by lots of different people. They want a person that is trained to do that, and sometimes it's DCF, but increasingly with their staffing issues, they'll partner with a local authority, but that local authority is not me. We stop as soon as someone says, this happened to me. You ask basic questions and you stop. You don't ask any investigative questions. You immediately call DCF. That's the mandated reporter role.
And if I remember correctly, there's a form that staff fill out. You know, I think they.
For all DCF
Right,
reports, yeah.
it's DCF, or whether it's, what you're saying, if there's a complaint regarding a staff member involving a student, because I think we've had these conversations before. And I know there is paperwork and it actually
A
addresses.
requirement.
Yeah, there is paper. It's not in here like a sample.
No, it's not. It's a state form. It's not a
Yeah,
policy
that's
form.
the-
We use a state form. Yeah, you call the hotline and you
That's right.
fill out the form.
And sometimes it's accepted and sometimes it's not.
Right, whether it's accepted or not, we fill out the form.
Right.
A copy of the form is under lock and key in central office, and it goes off to DCF. We basically turn it over to them.
Mhm.
Yeah, and do what they tell us to do.
Any question?
Yeah, to amplify Steve's line of thought there, Jan, if DCF comes back with their report after their investigation and determine that something actually did occur, would it be on them to contact the police, or would that be handed over to you and then you would contact the police if you thought the crime warranted that?
It could happen anyway, you know, we could call DCF and the police for some reason. We could call DCF and they'll say, we have it from here. Sometimes they call the police or send something over to the police department. Sometimes a parent calls the police, you know, it usually ends up involving multiple agencies. Our requirement by law is to call DCF. In this community, sometimes, and this community handles it a little bit differently than other places I've gone to, but I've been here for 10 years, so maybe those places are doing it that way too. We have to call DCF as mandated reporters. That is what the legislation says about educators. That doesn't mean that if someone says, I'm the one who got it reported and I'm also calling the police, we would never stop someone from doing that. You never interfere with someone's reporting of these things. But DCF is the requirement. They're the primary agency.
I'm going to just share something that I had to be in touch with DCF regarding a parent neglect. I mean, in this book, there's a variety of, the policy is a variety of samples of what it could look like. And the DCF did take the case, but it wouldn't be proper for the police to be involved because the DCF contacted that family. And so that's where it is. It's not always police generated. It's really very individual. And they are pretty scrupulous about not taking every, complaint. Yeah.
Any other questions? Administration of student medications in the school. Again, this is Shipman and Goodwin cleaning up a lot of their language, but then on page 11, it kind of updates what's being done with diabetes treatment these days. A lot of students are no longer doing the finger prick. They're actually wearing one of those permanent monitors. I call them patches, but they're a hard plastic monitor. And then you use your phone and you hold your phone to it and you find out what your blood glucose reading is. This says that we can't require students to also do a finger prick to verify that the glucose is what they say it is. And then on the next page, it says the Board of Education is required to purchase tools so that nurses can verify. We use phones, we purchase phones. And that's how we're handling that. The rest of this policy addition is about opioid antagonists, sometimes called Narcan. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed one, epinephrine. We, EpiPens. We have to have people who are trained to do it. And if the nurse isn't around to do it, we have to have other people who are trained to use EpiPens. We have that already. We're all set. We have people identified who can use EpiPens. The last part is optional language that I'm not recommending we adopt at this time. And it is about having Narcan in all of our schools and training nurses and others to use Narcan. And here's why. Our SROs are in our schools all day, every day. The Narcan rule only applies to during the school day. And we have someone in our buildings right now who's trained to use Narcan and has Narcan, or I should be saying opioid antagonists. The nurses have not trained. I haven't checked with them on their comfort level on training. I'm not even sure if the training is up and running yet, that was supposed to be offered. So I think at this point, I'm going to ask the board, but we not include that language. And then we can revisit it if something should change. Or should the need grow.
So the way this is written is it's written to not include it, you're just sharing it.
Right.
For
So not-
consideration.
You know that I'm recommending that we not include it. And that goes on into the regulation too. That really is the end of the change to that policy. Most of them is about Narcan. Meal charging policy basically just says, this is what you do, this is what this board has been doing all along. We're gonna accept money from the federal government. from USDA, we cannot embarrass kids. Stand there at the lunch line and say, you don't get a meal because you didn't pay your bill. We have to have discrete ways for people to pay their bills. We have that. We have an automated prepayment. We also accept cash and checks, and that language accepting cash and checks will be added to the final version of this policy because it really reflects what we're doing. That's really it. It's just, we can't, there's limitations. We can't tell kids you can only have a cheese sandwich because you didn't pay your bill. We can say you can't order a la carte, but we can say you can have a meal, a meal, not a la carte, you get to choose from all over the place, but you can get a full meal here. And we can't say you can only have a spaghetti, you know, there are 2 meals being served, you can have one of the 2 meals being served. The next one is not much of a change. It's about physical activity and undirected play. It's a clarification, again, Public Act 22-81. You can't restrict kids from play. So all kids K through 6 have to have 20 minutes of unrestricted playtime. If you don't have outside play that day, you have indoor recess, that's still a 20 minutes, that still counts. If you give additional playtime, really time, 15 minutes, go out on the playground, you can pull some of that time back if you think that there's a reason why the student may be a danger to himself or herself or others. This really is the way we respond now. This is not more or less than what we're
It
doing.
must be a good place because there's some districts were not, they were abusing it.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
it's
sorry.
clarification. It's a no, you can't call indoor recess something
Yeah.
else. It's still unrestricted playtime. The next one is on student attendance truancy and chronic absenteeism, and it's basically codifying, explaining more carefully the 2 mental health days, because we all had a whole bunch of questions. Students are allowed to take 2 mental health days a year. They can't be contiguous, but they can take them, and they don't count as sick days, but they do count towards chronic absenteeism for our reporting purposes. We just need to accept the parents saying Jan is taking a mental health day today. We don't need anything else. And what was happening was we were confused. We didn't know how to count them. And so this just explains that a little bit better. The policy doesn't, but the regulation does. It explains to us, here's how you count them for this purpose. Here's how you count them for that purpose. Unfortunately, it still counts against the district for chronic absenteeism.
So as a parent, whether you call it in as an absentee or whether you call it in as a mental health day, it all counts the same.
No, it's an excused absence for the student.
Okay.
For a mental health day.
Got it.
It counts against the district for our chronic
I
absenteeism
see,
rate.
that's, okay, I misunderstood.
Madam Chair, just a question. How did they come up with deciding if we needed a mental health day?
How did they come
How
up?
did they come up with all of a sudden, yeah, we need to just, now say the policy or maybe.
Um,
Because we're so very well that we're just being.
It was really COVID related and it was originally. It was originally 3 days without a parent notification.
Wow.
We went out and thought about that one because we said, you do understand kids can disappear on us if their parents don't know where they are, so. I think at one point it was 7 days, it's just,
Yeah.
and I might be
So we're kind of
missing.
shrinking.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jim.
Yep. And then the last one is the student,
Before we leave this,
Yeah.
policy, can I just ask a question?
sure,
On page 13, I see how it's adding in information under the state set, page 13, C and D are new.
Yeah.
Is D part of that same general statute? Is that why it's being added?
yeah. Mhm.
Okay, and if a student is, at school finds a mental health specialist, they speak to that student,
Mhm.
are those parents being notified that a mental health specialist spoke to their child?
Not necessarily. No.
But
Because that's not something that we're asked to do, nor in some cases should we. So some cases you have students who are seeking help from a professional in our school. Or they're having a professional and confidential conversation, and those conversations are meant to be kept confidential.
that's not what's saying here, it's saying as determined by the district, so that's not a student reaching out, that's the district deciding that that person was to speak to somebody.
the
So I'm just saying as a parent,
Mhm.
if there's a mental health specialist that speaks to my son,
Mhm,
I wanna know about it.
mhm.
I send him to school, be taught.
Yeah.
Not to be approached by a mental health specialist. I want that information. I'm not saying I would stop it, but as a parent,
I feel as though I'm entitled to know that my son is being spoken to.
This is saying when students choose. Is that what you're talking about?
In this case, it is, but in general, I was answering the question in general about the question of whether or not we always tell parents. We don't. There are times when there'll be confidential conversations that are not shared. It also depends on the age of the student.
Yeah, because after the age of 15, right?
Yes.
So under the age of
I mean, there are
15, do we have any type of policy
There
in
are-
place about when?
There are
Children are
confidential
spoken to.
conversations that go on that I'm not even, would never be privy to between a school psychologist and a student. Guidance counselor and a student, social worker and a student that may or may not be shared with other people. Depends on the nature of it. If there is concern about self-harm. Or violence or something that then clearly we get parents involved, we get lots of people involved. But there are some conversations that are shared. A student may go and complain about a parent to a counselor. And the counselor will then support them and help them out, and that might not be shared.
My opinion.
Yeah.
on this
Yeah.
situation, and maybe that's a discussion for another day.
Yeah. Anything else? This is position, actually, this person who's gonna be reaching out, they've been talking about requiring us to have school liaisons to families. I don't know how that's gonna work in larger districts. We will work with our current staff, social workers. Okay, and the last one is the student use of the district computer systems, internet safety. It's the same as the adult one. Nothing's changed. They're just updated. Those are the policies, and those will be on the consent agenda next time.
All comprehensive.
Okay, reports by administration. Kathleen Goodwin School.
Was there Amity? Joining us or no?
Anybody?
Oh,
Yeah,
she's joining, I thought she was. Even more.
For testing, she's still on.
This might be has to have.
So is there, and does anyone have any questions for Heston?
I think I'm going to representative, right?
Well, and it doesn't sound like he can hear us right now, so.
If we maybe can come back,
If I do have some questions.
sure, the Old Civic Middle School.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
I don't know that I have anything to share beyond the report, so if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Well, I just had a comment about your report, especially the first paragraph. I probably read that about 3 times, and I gotta tell you, I'm incredibly impressed. Amazingly impressed. I've always felt that when teachers come and present how they do personalized teaching and project-based teaching and still try to meet standards, that it's incredibly difficult task. And what you have described is an approach to codify that and then include student input. I mean, that is just very impressive work. So well done.
Thank you. And I would like to acknowledge, we had some staff that was very involved in planning that professional development as well as working with the kids. So they did a nice job as well.
Yeah, so mine's just a follow-up. George, you might like this. So my question is, at some point, I'd love to find out what, or enjoy learning more about what the students might have suggested to teachers in terms of how to make certain content more relevant, or however the vocabulary you want to apply to that. Because I think it's really very exciting and what teachers thought about it, and if they think that perhaps some of their observations may be valid.
It was interesting because the teachers actually went through a similar process and talked about what things that they felt were engaging to students. And then the students, we had the information collected from all of the students in the school. We had student representatives from each grade level that actually organized that information and shared their own input. And I would say that the teachers probably had quite a few things on there that matched what the kids said. So I think that the teachers are pretty well aware of what things are interesting for the students. That being said, that I think hearing directly detailed answers from the kids was actually very, very valuable for the teachers. I had a lot of teachers afterwards say that they got quite a bit out of that. And really, I think understanding at a deeper level how important certain things are, such as having opportunities to collaborate, having opportunities for choice, having opportunities to connect with the community. So there was quite a few different things that the kids talked about that they found engaging within the work of their classes.
Terrific. I look forward just, when they work an agenda, just to have students actually share what is it that would be changed in terms of how they would approach certain topics that might have been delivered, in a certain way.
Yeah, we
And how they
kind of left it a
realize-
little more broad to what things they actually felt make lessons better, because we had teachers from all different content areas. But as they talked, the teachers did ask questions, and I don't have all of the specifics of all the questions. There was quite a few groups going on. But I did hear some of the details of some of the conversations, and I think that the teachers got a lot of information out of, specific things that they found helpful.
Hey, Steve. Just a quick question. I was reading under the Safe School Climate Goal. Talks about we have started data collection utilizing a data system for tracking behaviors. What kind of information is being collected there, and are there identifiers of where that behavior is coming from, or?
Yes, so actually, this is a program called SWIS, which is part of it is connected with the PBIS program that we have at the school. So PBIS stands for Positive Behavior Interventions and Supports. It's actually it's a program that the high school uses as well for data collection, I believe. And it's a program that I've used in the past, and I believe Old Saybrook Middle School has used in the past, and it did not meet data privacy for a while, that regulation. However, now it does. And therefore, we're able to do it again. So basically what happens is on our referrals, our behavior referrals, it collects a variety of information. The location of where incidents happening, what kind of incident it was, time of day, day of the week, as well as, information about the student. Then that information is put into this system, and it can provide us with some pretty detailed information about where we're having behaviors in the building, as far as location, the type of behaviors, different groups of students that we might be concerned about, which grades may have higher levels of behavior. And then as a school, different groups, different committees are able to come up with some plans of how to address those in a proactive way. That could be making adjustments to our positive behavior support system. It might be adding some different tiered supports for different groups of kids based on the needs that we're seeing. And it could be adding additional staff to a certain location in the building, because we're noticing that there may be some additional concerns at that point in the year in that location.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just a comment, I wonder if there will be a spike in students who are pursuing a career in the FBI as a result of the apparently very interesting presentation that you guys had from the FBI agents.
Yes,
I
that
really
was
think-
actually, that was very, very interesting. I think the kids actually were quite intrigued by some of his stories. As well as I was. I mean, he went from everything from identifying what kind of birds were causing airplane crashes when they hit the airplane based on DNA, to different looking at different bomb squad type of situations and how they deal with some of those, and some additional other unique situations that he was in. So it was a very interesting conversation, but his goal in this was that when he spoke with the students as a big group, as well as he also spoke with the leadership group, was really to talk about what skills, those 21st century skills, kids are going to need to be able to pursue these kinds of careers going forward. So that was really one of the main goals of that. And we're looking to bring in some additional speakers with that same idea of them being able to talk, not just about what they do, but what skills they had to build over time from, elementary school all the way up, to be able to be successful in their areas of their careers.
I think that's awesome, because typically, right, when you think of an FBI agent, you think of a guy with a gun or a person with a gun. And, this does show a lot of insight into the different skill sets, like you said. I just think it's amazing. So, great job.
Chris, just a few comments. The PBIS program is awesome. It's really, we've used it in our detention centers for years and it improves constantly, but it really helps the individual, but as you said, it helps the greater system and how to approach kids with behavior. So commend your school for embracing that and the teachers. And the second comment is in terms of student participation and voice at the middle school. I've heard many things throughout meetings and from students occasionally of how they're feeling involved, having a voice, being involved in leadership. And some of the things you mentioned here today, that it's a common thread that commend you and the teachers for embedding.
Well, thank you for that. That means a lot to us. I think not just for myself, but for the entire staff. It's definitely one of our goals. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Great, thank you so much.
Happy holiday, Krista.
Old Saybrook High School.
Hi, everybody. Similar to Krista, I don't really have anything new to add other than what's in the report. So if you have any questions.
Oh, Joe, with upcoming concerts coming up.
Yep, the rescheduled concert is on the 21st, next Wednesday. And that involved the middle school and the high school as well. And then there's a concert on the 18th. Originally, it was scheduled at the church, but it's going to be in the auditorium at 5 o'clock because there was an event at the church.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Joe. Holidays.
Happy holidays.
Amy, curriculum instruction assessment.
Well, so the Next Generation Accountability Index was released and we are very excited. We have the presentation ready to go for you for the beginning of January. So you might want to wait until you get to see that to really get in depth there, but it was some pretty exciting news for Old Saybrook and everyone should spread the news and be proud of that work in this community. You heard about the reading waiver. That's sort of what we're waiting for. And we are currently looking for a teacher evaluation platform. So we've done some initial sort of scouting around for that. And again, very much like what Julie's encountering, they sort of offer what they offer and they offer everything from $2,500 and take it or leave it to $18,000 and it'll be whatever you want it to be and whenever we finish it. It's a wild market.
I just want to point out that clearly this is going to be a very happy report. We are so thrilled, particularly because this is post-COVID, and we didn't know how we were doing. We had our own local assessment, but we didn't know how we were doing. And it tells us that on many, many indicators, we were doing very well. And we'll dig into the details of, which are our strongest indicators, where are we going to be growing a little bit more, hoping to grow a little bit more at the next board meeting. But we are super thrilled. I told Amity it's a walk-off home run for her. She let that walk-off. But it really is a testimony to her work, to the work of the teachers, the administrators at the buildings. Very, very proud. And Niche is one of those ratings, and I don't really put much store in these ratings, but Niche is one of those rating groups that rate our schools, all the schools, and they named us #1 in Middlesex County. And we've been working with the other one, Great Schools, that apparently a lot of the real estate agents use. They have our data so wrong, and they tried so hard to get them to fix it, and to no avail. They, yeah, we got it fixed, and then they don't. Oh, wow. So very frustrating to us, but we'll keep plugging away at it. Maybe they'll charge us $18,000 and get it.
You can have any number you want.
One little amendment to this, we are ranked 15th of 204 school districts, but if you're looking at P12 school districts, we're actually 12th. Because there are many fewer indicators if you're an elementary only district, and 3 of the top 15 are elementary only districts.
Outstanding.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, everybody. Congratulations to this community.
Yes. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Sure, comment. Again, I really appreciate your report and the back page where you summarize frustration from the state. You know, I mean, I think the state Department of Education is basically, I mean, they're saying that there is a shortage of teachers and teachers are leaving the profession because of frustration. And I'm also wondering how much of it is caused by them. Like, with the bureaucracy almost, right? Well, it makes it the job just sort of.
And I do have some sympathy for the folks at the State Department of Education because there are so few of them at this point. And there's so much legislation that just says, well, the State Department of Education will do this. And there's nobody there to do that.
Right, and so agreed, Amity, I'm glad you said that because we don't want to just keep that, and they're a third of what they used to be. And, you know, I think that they have to find a new way to do business. They need to find partners who are willing to work with them, and they have been trying to do that, you know, Cave and Taps and Cats and all the different organizations, but, you know, I'm sure they're under their own form of pressure, but it is really exhausting for the district.
Okay, thank you. Julie, operations and facility finance.
So, you have the updated report. We have done some calculating through, you know, the first half of the year, fiscal year for us. Salaries continue to be sort of an up and down, component, so we're obviously watching that closely. And we do anticipate at this point, we have a deficit, in the salary account. So we are, careful as to our other, I won't call them, they're all needed accounts, but there may be accounts we can't expend like we might normally want to at the end of the year. So we'll keep you apprised of that, but right now, you know, we're waiting. The winter months are always a challenge. And this year, you know, the town and the board, we haven't locked in on fuel oil or gas or any of those things that we normally do because the market has been so vulnerable. We do typically do that along with the town. So we're kind of hoping that the winter's kind to us and that there's not anything, you know, catastrophic in the way of repairs or needs, but the spring, you know, we usually come to you and kind of give you an update of where we landed over the last couple of months, next 3 months, tell a big picture, and then we start wrapping up. Before you know it, we start wrapping up before the end of the year. So, you know, we're mindful of the areas that we need to be mindful of, and you have, we noted that we applied for the grant with the state. I don't know that we're gonna get funding prior to the closing of that grant. In the presentation that Jan presented to the group a couple of weeks ago, there was a lot of talk about additional rounds of funding coming. That was a big push because, as Jan explained earlier, with air conditioning and air quality issues coming down the pipe, one round of funding is only the tip of the iceberg. When we submitted our grant, I spoke to several people at the state, and there were 115 applications put in. So if you think about ours was 1.8 million. If there's 115 of those put in, the 150 million is gone. You know? So we have to wait and see, but I think, you know, I think we have a chance at maybe one of the two that we submitted. The second one, unless we, like I said, unless we improve funding, but doesn't come to fruition for us. So that's kind of the wrap up.
Julie, any questions for Julie? Okay, thanks. Student services.
Hello again, and Leah's here if you have any questions about any of the social emotional learning parts.
Kathy, I was gonna ask you if you know what generated converting from IEP Direct to SENS? What generated that?
I think it started years ago. They did not like our old IEP. They felt it wasn't parent friendly. They felt it didn't follow the letter of the law in some of the areas. So they started out by formulating a new document, a new IEP document, but then it morphed into this whole data system for all the state reports that we do. And I don't know if that's what complicated it. The company that is in charge of CT SEDS, I don't know if you remember years ago, Easy IEP. They're the same company. We went through Easy IEP probably 20 years ago and got rid of it because it wasn't a good system. Went to IEP Direct and now to this system. You know, I think the state wanted us all on the same thing so they could, you know, get all of their data. So that was part of it also.
You did special education, like directors like yourself indicate that it's taking 4 to 5 hours, if not more, to fill out this paperwork.
I have filled out more surveys about this than anything in my life. Up until a month ago, I was at 3 meetings a week with the Bureau Chief of Special Ed because there were so many problems. It's now once a week so that they can be concentrating on fixing some of these problems. So they do know it. They did do supposedly a pilot last year. I'm told the districts that did the pilot said it wasn't ready, but they apparently were so far along that they had to keep going with this. We've all begged to go back to IEP Direct, give it some more time to, work out the glitches, but I think I'm guessing they're too far down the road.
Thanks for being so honest, Kathy, I appreciate it.
They are, and I'm gonna say, they get a little easier, but it's a very, very different system and document. So it's just a long learning curve.
Thanks so much.
More questions? Okay, thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Superintendent of Schools.
Yeah, happy to take questions.
Any questions for Jen? Okay.
Is Joe still on here?
Um,
Is that a question?
yeah, Joe, are you still on?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm just slow getting to the mute button tonight.
No, you're okay. I apologize because I was looking at your report and I just want to say kudos to opening the opportunity for students to visit cosmetology or hairdressing school. One of my daughters has said, I always wanted to be a hairdresser, Mom, and you never let me. I'm like, oh, but it's interesting because it has a different framework now than maybe it used to. And also the automotive opportunity for students. But the other piece I think is really terrific is that you had, talked about social and emotional learning, making things more relevant. I mean, having students in high school send holiday cards to, individuals that are being deployed. I mean, that is real, that's real world.
Yeah, we're really happy about the advisory program. We have about 7 students that have joined the committee as well as part of our expansion to add student voice, and they're getting involved in the planning to make it more relevant and authentic. Some of the kids went to the Chevy place today in town, and they dropped their backpacks in my office, and they picked them up on the way back, and they were glowing. And then Karina Using showed me some of the photos from it, and they were getting in there. They were looking under the lifts. They were checking everything out. And I guess they had a rather expensive Chevy there that they let the kids pile into, and 800 horsepower Camaro sitting there. And the kids were just on cloud 9 when they got back. So offering those opportunities more and more, I think, is so vital. And I just also want to give a shout out to Carly Daly, Anna Amity, and Christine Barros, who couldn't be here tonight as the ILT rep. Carly read our minds when we initially went to meet her about expanding a class that was another avenue to capstone an authentic experience. And she just embraced it and ran with it and was so excited. And you could see her energy tonight. I mean, she's been a fantastic addition to our Old Saybrook staff. I just want to give a shout out to her, and I'm really looking forward to seeing that in action and seeing our kids in action with it. So very exciting stuff.
The other piece I just wanted to add is, I'm not sure that many students ever think about students that, young children or adults or young adults that are actually at CCMC, Connecticut's Children's Center, that may be suffering from just various illnesses that require them to stay hospitalized.
Yeah.
And I think this initiative, whether it's personal or global, your pajama day really makes a difference. It's not like, let's see what your pajamas look like. And the monies toward this are going toward a really good cause.
Yeah, that was Maddie Bodwin, her project, and then obviously it was a statewide initiative, and all the schools participated. Another exciting thing to see our kids just wrap their arms around something like that, a cause, and just and do something about it, and make a difference. And that's what we hope for our kids as they grow into young adults.
Thank you so much for encouraging that.
Of course,
For you
of
and me.
course.
Yeah, just can you give us a brief update in terms of the safety committee, the focus groups, and where that's headed?
So, the report was completed. It went out to the committees, the committee members who were on it, for review. And now we have it scheduled to go out next week to the entire community, posted on our website. So we identified some things that had gotten a little bit dusty during COVID. We weren't used to having visitors. We were kind of forgetful in some places about how we let visitors in and what our protocols were. So we had this committee formed that included parents, secretaries, custodians, administrators, some other staff members, both Alan Hyla and Leanne Flynn were on that. And we just met 4 times, once virtually, once at each of the buildings in case we need to walk around, take a look. We went over all kinds of processes, and we identified some problems, like a couple problems with our Raptor system were fixed because of that, and just, it was a refresher. And so now we're just gonna put it out there to the community and say, look, we did this refresher because it was time to reopen our schools, and this is what we learned. And it's also a gentle nudge to everybody, follow the rules, be expected to be questioned if you show up at a school. We want to know who you are and why you're there.
Or don't go in on somebody else's coattail. Make sure that
Right,
you,
yeah.
ring the bell so that. they
Thank
let
you.
Yeah, thanks.
Any questions for Jen? Okay, on to the reports by the board committees, liaisons. We'll start with, but we can let you go.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
the,
administrators,
And
Yeah.
yes.
I think we're all set.
Good night, all.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Happy holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays. Thank you.
Thanks, George. Okay, reports by board committees. We'll start with budget and fiscal.
we have not met, but it sounds like we will be, hard yet, so looking forward to that.
Happy New Year.
That came just actually had a terrific conference. Post COVID. And they were really enthused by the numbers of individuals that came. Wonderful to see the commissioner, wonderful to see Jan get her award. Just great for networking. I was curious to know how other people found the convention that came for maybe the first time. Did you enjoy it, or what are the things that you might have benefited, or?
I loved it. I thought it was great. I, enjoyed the networking process. I met quite a few people. It was neat running into our Westbrook friends and then meeting people that they knew. And it was fabulous. Jan, it was exactly what I thought it would be.
Thanks for the feedback.
Yeah, it was great.
I thought there was a lot of energy at the conference, really positive, and the collaboration, being there with other board members, as Leanne said. I thought the speaker was excellent, the keynote speaker was excellent. Mental health, and just, very apropos and really. So, Dr. Adam, yes, from Yale. So I was very happy to be there for one day and certainly be part of Dan's speech and presentation and acceptance of it. So.
Good feedback.
I think it was my first time too, and it was great. I mean, I sat in a couple of different sessions and got to see Jan's award.
Got your own award, you all got your own awards.
There was a lot of people there.
Yeah.
And it's a little overwhelming to see so much going on, but it was great to be there. Sharon?
Jim, we typically get a report on the workshops that everybody attended, just a summary, is that forthcoming?
We do, shall I send out the forms so that everyone can fill them out?
Yeah, I'd love to
Sure.
hear, you know,
Yeah.
what
I can do that.
everybody
Absolutely.
learned.
Yeah.
So I've been multiple times, and this was just as good as all the other years. I thought it was very good. One thing that's unusual, and I'm sure there's a reason for it, is the way they recognize the boards. Like, is it level 2 and level 1? And so they recognize level 2 in the morning and have them stand up. And then there's I remember this from like previous years as well, like. There's always questions around, well, like, we didn't get recognized in the morning, we got recognized over lunch, so. That would be my feedback, is that I think that there's an opportunity to improve the way those recognitions are done. Because it's a little unclear, those boards that know they're gonna get recognized for something, but they're not mentioned. It's just a little odd the way it's done that way.
Yeah, I
So,
appreciate the feedback because I mean, we're looking forward to strengthen.
yeah.
I think we were level 2, right?
Right, which is a higher.
It makes it higher, and that's why I'm trying saying, why didn't we get on that?
And it's not just,
Right there.
it's
Yeah.
not just us that are confused, it's like you hear it every year, everybody's kind of like, well, what?
Yeah.
And it's not clear that level 1, like level 2 is better, not better, but more prestigious, I guess. So it's, if that could be structured a little differently and.
Right,
set
I
up that
actually had to ask Jan, she said you had to fill out more paperwork to get the level 2, you know, and I was like, oh, I
I
was.
think you have to win level 1 a certain number of times and there's
Two
paperwork.
is a much more extensive application.
Yeah.
So the criteria are a lot more rigorous and they
Yeah.
expect you to meet a lot more of it.
And you'd never know that
Right.
from the way it's done.
Just stand up.
There's an assumption that everybody knows, they forget board members change and it's not the
That's
same
right.
people there, you know, every year, yeah. That's them.
No, but it's
We'd like to be
feedback.
called gold from now on,
Yeah.
not level. But we'd like to be carried in.
Karen, I like your idea. I think it's a great opportunity for us to share with the workshops that we went to. I haven't read it in a while, but the Cave newsletter, I read it from front page to back page, and there's some really good information for board members. So I would encourage us all to take advantage of that.
Yeah, we have a form. I didn't send it out this
That's
time
okay.
because I kind of felt like, come and see me get an award. And oh, by the way, here's some work for you to do, but I will send that out before the week is over.
Maybe we can share it among ourselves so that
Yeah.
you're not just reading it.
You
because
can
there's sometimes
be submitted and put it
anecdotal that you don't know. but writing.
Also, you know,
Yeah, put it in the notebooks, what we've done in the past.
Great.
Thanks,
Thanks so much for the feedback.
Facilities. So we didn't meet as a committee, but certainly Julie's been keeping us up to date and then some on all the happenings. So thanks, Julie.
Mark.
All right, first of all, I want to apologize for having my tongue tied. I was trying to read without glasses because it's been a long day with contacts, but they're on now. So my Learn update I absolutely love everything about being a member of the board of directors at Learn. It is wonderful. I have a couple of things because we've had several meetings prior to this one. So driven by the concerning trends in children's mental health, Learn developed a team to serve the whole child with in those teaching and caring for a child with needs. The CDC guidelines show, the data shows that 20% of our children are identified with mental health and issues, and this has all stemmed from COVID. The percentage has increased, They learners developed a multi-tiered system. They have behaviorists, a behavior analyst, psychologist, special ed coordinator, and a deputy executive director. Their projects that they're focusing on are identifying student needs, educator support, crisis support, and system development. They have they're developing an outreach program, which is going to provide training for all within the Learn region, and a help desk with hours for immediate assistance. So that is fabulous. The latest meeting we just had, we had Patrice McCarthy speak to us about the upcoming legislative session. She encouraged all of us to create relationships with our legislators and to remain vocal regarding mandates and policies, and to contact them for a call to action. She views this session as primarily being a cleanup of existing policies with no major changes, but discussion around the reading program issues that went on for quite a long time at our meeting, just as it always has here, as well as the task force to look into PD mandates. For example, she gave the, as an educator, I laughed, the bloodborne pathogens video. We see yearly. It seems redundant as adult learners. So she's saying that with PD, sometimes it just becomes stale to some teachers, because here we are coming back to school and the same PD is available to us and mandated that we have to attend it. And Learn is working, the last thing we learned is they're working with eGeneration Sports, which is an exciting program that increases engagement, therefore improves attendance. Video game learning currently used in Griswold, Stonington, and Fitch High School, and it works along with the CIAC. And it's a very exciting program, and it's having great results. So he wants us to mention that. Anybody have any questions? All right.
Thanks, Leanne. Strategic planning.
That's not changing. Subject keeps us very well informed.
Yeah, when we set our goals in October, we have, mid-year updates coming, action steps have been operationalized. Administrator and teacher goals are subsets of the strategic plan, and we're just at that phase we're working on. I will be starting the mid-year conversations with administrators, see how we're going. How we're doing rather, and whether or not anything needs to be tweaked or modified between now and the end of the year. The other thing that is happening is at district leadership team meetings, not every meeting, but about once a month, we're discussing how things are moving along and what artifacts are being collected to demonstrate that we are moving on, that we are moving towards goals.
Yeah, and you always, with our next, at each of our leadership evaluation meetings, you always
Yeah, gives you the update.
update
February.
us with everything. So February will be the next one.
Thank you. Any questions first or not? Okay. Demographics,
Mid-meeting hasn't,
Haven't been any to talk about.
personnel.
I already gave my report earlier, so.
We should put that on the list. Policy,
The policy, just get ready, because policies are coming down the pipe. We just met this evening.
yeah, chairman report, I'm just gonna make comment that from the conference, because I gave my name there, I was invited to listen to the board chair check-in on this Thursday, which I will do.
Yeah, it's great.
For enough.
Yeah, those are really great. Then you get on a listserv and you hear a lot of conversations about things being discussed at other board meetings.
And anyone can join, not just board chair.
Anyway, that's all I have. And bottom of the agenda, a bunch of reminders.
Special board meeting is at 6 o'clock.
Yeah, 6 o'clock next Monday.
I'd just like to comment on that, because I don't think a notice went out about that meeting, and I'm just concerned from the perspective of it's 6 days before Christmas. It's at a very busy time of year, and I think that typically we do get a call or a notice to say that there will be a meeting, that there will be a special meeting, and I think that just seeing it here for the first time is a little surprising.
I had some kind of
Last meeting.
It was already.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, so, yeah, that we decided at the last meeting to have it then so that we could get this person on board, we hope. You know, sometime in January, so that's what with the 19th, I mean, I think Trent had checked, did you check availability or?
No.
No, so we just did it at the meeting, that's how we missed you.
Okay.
All right.
And then, so one thing I noticed tonight, and it would be great to hear feedback. It was great to see Krista illuminated. So I think she changed her lighting and I think it made a difference and I just think that was very good. And then the other question I have is related to the correspondence. I mentioned it briefly. I thought that it wasn't posted in our notebook because it just came in, but it came in on the 9th of November. So I was surprised that it wasn't in our notebook. And so,
Right here.
yes.
Okay.
And I don't know who it's addressed to, if it's addressed to the board or if it's just addressed to GM, but if it's addressed to the board, is there a response that we're going to be recommending or how are we gonna?
Yeah.
What are we gonna do about it?
No, I just haven't read it, it just says November 9th, that's something.
So I don't know if you've had a chance to read it, we can put it in the notebook and then you can tell me what you'd like me to do.
Put this in the notebook.
Yes, that,
Okay, that would be
sure.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't get a chance to.
And then one other thing, just the kids left again at 10 after 8, and I think we talked about that a couple of meetings ago, that they probably, pardon me?
Usually have immediately.
Right, and we should talk about this before, about letting them know that it's 8:30 and.
Oh, yeah, they were shortly after 8.
Yeah, so maybe, I don't know, if Trevor can follow up with them and let them know. Not that they're doing anything wrong, it's just that I think that they don't know what it's the expectation yet, yeah.
I mean.
If I can just follow up this is addressed to Jean Pruccio, this letter from Chris Randall.
Yeah, and so it's being shared with us, and I think that what I heard you say is if there's how we want to respond, what we would like you to do.
Yeah, so it's addressed to me and he says, to the Old Saybrook Board of Education, but he sent it to me and he thanks me for having the presentation. Yeah, so I can follow up with him. We certainly talk frequently.
Well, that's what.
Yeah, so maybe
that there is this ongoing conversation Jan has with him.
Right,
Yeah, so,
I'm happy to do
yeah.
that. And we'll also get a copy of this, you know.
I had I'll ask the first part first, because based on what Sabrina was saying about the students leaving early. I think that should more or less be a decision on behalf of the chair, because if there's. You know, we're at 8:15, everything after that is boring stuff that they would have no. Relevant discussion on, and maybe you can make that judgment call at the time. I don't think there has to be a hard and fast rule.
No, I'll remember that.
Obviously, they shouldn't leave on their own volition, but.
Yeah.
You can say, hey, you know, if you guys want to take off, that's fine. And my question was, I was gonna ask Heston, but he left before that, so maybe you know, Jan, well, I shouldn't say long ago, before COVID, the elementary school, Goodman Elementary, used to have a pageant of sorts for holidays. And I'm wondering if they still do that or intend to do that in following years.
So I don't know the answer to that. I know he talked about what they were gonna do, and I know they have. I know I'm in the 12 days of Christmas, but I do believe that, yeah, I'm five golden rings. That's internal only. That is for the kids and staff. But I don't think there's anything planned for the public, though. And remember, we've had some staffing changes there, and so staff used to do something different than what the current one does.
Okay.
But I certainly can ask him that question and get back to you. Is there any pageant involving
I would love to go.
people outside? Yeah.
Well, I just remember it was a big highlight for the
Yes.
community to go in there
I
at
will-
Christmas time.
I will
and
ask that
See
question.
what the kids were up to when they sing some carols. and-
Yeah, send them all email.
I'll think about all this. So that he has your participation.
Thanks. I met him, I gotta find out if I need to bring my own props, because Dawn Renato used to provide it all for me.
So the frosty outfit.
I said, probably, yeah, and Miss Frizzle. Yeah, she sent it all. Great. You look like. I know. Parents and assembly. Okay, got it. I've got a note and I'll ask him.
Okay, so the special board meeting will be next Monday, 6 o'clock. And that's the main thing coming up soon, and of course, this Friday or the second round of interviews.
Third round.
Third round, I'm sorry.
And around on Friday, and then that Monday will be.
And
the
so-
boards
And we're recommended by Trevor, Karen, Leanne,
I'm coming
Trevor,
Friday.
Karen, Leanne, and Eileen. Nobody else can come, we'll have a forum.
Any last comments or questions before we adjourn?
The only thing I just wanted to say is based on that letter, I didn't get a chance to read it. I would take your recommendation before I meet written to you.
Yes,
So I would take your
Yes.
way of proceeding
Yep.
versus saying to the board, what should I do? Because you know best.
thank you. I will definitely back out.
May I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Yes, all in favor?
Yeah,
Thank you, guys.
very long.